This thief is about to break into my car and steal my backpack. But as they'll soon find out, thanks to a low-tech drill and power window system, this will probably be the last car that they break into. Theft from cars is a huge problem around the world. The YouTube channel called MarkRober, which by coincidence is hosted by a bloke also named MarkRober, well, he drew some attention to this problem and the strategies that thieves now use to steal stuff from your car. This normally involves breaking the window and leaning in to access any possessions people have left in the car. But for the victims of this type of theft, the experience doesn't just involve the loss of the items, but also can cause significant emotional distress. Admirably, MarkRober took to the challenge of stopping thieves once and for all. Using his engineering experience from working at places like Apple and NASA, where he designed things like a dustbin lid for a remote control car, he came up with a trap for thieves that involved planting a desirable looking bait package in a car, but would surprise the thief with a shower of glitter and a burst of fart spray, which I must admit is an impressive feat of engineering, especially for someone who only months earlier had trouble making a baseball that worked. As awesome as I think the design and engineering is, I feel that it didn't solve the problem. I mean, if anything, I wouldn't even say it's a deterrent, especially against glitter thieves and fart sniffers. Now, I'm not saying I'm a better engineer, because I'm not an engineer at all. In fact, my whole channel pretty much seems to be about me finding and failing at solving everyday problems with stuff. But that's not going to deter me from having a crack at this problem too. So the first thing you'll need is a car. You probably already have one, which is why you're here trying to find ways to stop people stealing stuff from it. If your car is equipped with windows, there's a good chance they'll be power windows. And a power window unit is what we'll be using as the basis for our anti-theft device. This car has 4 power window units at our disposal that appear to feature both a regular speed function and also a slow motion option for those who enjoy the graceful ballet that is glass slowly sliding itself into place. To remove the power window unit, first I had to undo all the screws I could find and to remove the door skin. Then I could peel back the plastic bedwetting sheet. While I had access to the door cavity, I removed some of the leaves and junk that had blown in over the years, which could cause rust. Then after the screws were removed, I could pull out the power window mechanism and then seal the door back up. Now we have that out, we can give it a test with these sparkler clamps that I have. Despite its age, it moves quite well with 12 volts. To get a bit more speed out of it, I cleaned it up with some wax and grease remover. This stuff has not only been great for cleaning up oil in the shed, but has also been helpful for keeping on top of that bathroom invasion we had by waterfowl.
Okay, I'm gonna back away now.
With some fresh lubrication on it, we can now give it a bit of a strength test. That should be perfect for our anti-thief device. But also the good thing about these things, if you give them more than 12 volts, like 18 volts from this battery drill, you can get it to move a bit faster. So we might do that after we attach a knife to it. So we're going to be thrusting a knife forward, so we need one that's fairly sharp and strong. I recently found this cool looking one that someone had simply left near the train station. It has a hollow handle and an end cap. I unscrewed it and found this bag of powder, which I think is to help with gripping the handle. Now, although I thought a knife would be pretty good, do you know what's even better? A drill with a knife in it. So I picked this drill up for free second hand because it was listed as broken, but it turns out just the battery terminals were dirty. But I figured the stabby effect of the knife will be greatly improved if it can be rotated. As this will be operated remotely, all we'll need is the motor to work without the trigger. So to access the inside components of your drill, you'll need another drill to disassemble it. If you only have one drill, you can simply use a mirror. I always find the internal organs of different power tools interesting. Apart from the speed control trigger, which I'm going to use for another YouTube video, there was also a free paracetamol tablet embedded in the top. I pulled the parts out that I didn't need, and then fed the wires from the motor directly out the side of the drill. I then chopped up some wood, shaped it to fit the side of the drill, put some bolts through it, crushed the drill a little bit by tightening the bolts too much, but then I ended up with a nice flat surface that can be more easily mounted to the sliding bracket of the power window thing. I then put as many screws in as I could fit. Now woodworkers will have just noticed a critical error I just made here, which will haunt me later. Post in the comments if you spotted it. So I want to mount this directly on the inside of the car door, a bit like a drink holder that stabs you. So I cut up some strips of flat bar and welded them as brackets on the bottom, then bent up a bracket for the top, and I welded that on with a threaded bolt instead of molten steel, and this should make a nice and secure mounting. We are now ready to install it on the car door. I worked out roughly where a thief might be positioned after they broke the window and are leaning into the car to grab something. This seemed to be the perfect spot with a little bit of angle on it so it won't hit the passenger seat when the drill is in the down position. Then we need to drill some holes for the screws. Don't worry though, once removed, the door skin will grow back and hide any drill holes or damage. Now it's good to keep in mind that there is some wiring hiding inside the door for the locking and power windows. You could check to see where it is before putting the screws in, or like me, simply have a fire extinguisher on hand and listen for any flames. After it was mounted, as an added bonus, the window still works and the glass didn't explode from the screws going into it. I put some Tech screws into the door pocket at the bottom, then screwed the electric motor in place, which was otherwise just hanging there. So the drill can hold the knife, I need to put a shaft in the knife handle. My plan is just to use a bolt to grip into the hollow of the handle, which I can hopefully achieve by using a bit of rubber, I guess a bit like a concrete sleeve anchor, so when I tighten it up it should jam in there. I couldn't find any rubber hose to fit over the bolt, but then I had a look in the engine bay of the car. I found some hoses in there, and because they weren't made of metal, I figured they weren't related to the operation of the engine, so I snipped one off. I put this around the bolt, put it inside the knife, and tightened up the nut, which gripped in there nicely. I then felt pretty compelled to test the knife out in my regular drilling drill, which turned out to be fairly scary in itself. I tried out the stabbability of the knife, and it really made me realise the knife needed a bit of work to get it a little bit sharper, because this blade is really chipped and damaged. So I went about using all of my non-existent knife sharpening skills and worked the knife between a belt sander, a sharpening stone, a knife sharpener that has different grades, and a stainless steel Harry Potter's wizard wand. And I got an okay result, but I'm open to any knife sharpening tips that you might want to leave in the comments. With the knife finished, I then put it in the drill, and this whole setup is starting to look as scary as hell. But regardless of how it looks, it's not going to work until we get some wires on there. I had a spare power window mechanism on hand, which I thought would be good just to get my head around the wiring on the bench before wiring up the final machine. Basically, we want this to be triggered, then move all the way up and down on its own without destroying itself. So I'm going to use these limit switches on each end so the slider hits them and it tells the motor to stop, but it also allows it to go back the opposite way. Just to test it out, I used a lower voltage and also the drill trigger controller just so the motor won't move too fast and break my switches. Even though I did that, I still crashed into the end and broke my switches before I even had any wires on them. But I did realise I've built my first printer, which will be great for people who like really straight lines that have been traced over multiple times. So wiring for end switches like this is actually really handy to know. You'll need a bunch of heavy gauge wire, some switches, then you can hammer them all into place. You can then also add a battery which will help with the electricity requirement. After I had my wires in place, I gave it a test. And it worked perfectly, ready to be incorporated on the machine. I removed the machine from the car and I welded some brackets to hold the switches in place. I got them all wired up and it seems to be working quite well. And we have remote control over our drill going forward and backwards. I realised though that this top limit switch might be pressed by the thief as they lean into the car, which would deactivate the device. So I've welded a bar over the top to protect it. I then gave it a go at a higher voltage. And this thing is moving along bloody quick, so I had to actually reinforce the end limits a bit so it wouldn't break them. We can then do the final door installation and tidy up the wiring. I put the knife in and gave it another test, and in doing this I realised a bit of a problem, which is the knife looks like it's going to be pretty close to the glass when the window's up. I'm guessing it will be quite a fail to have the machine break the glass just to invite the thief into the car. So manual mode is working nicely. For fully automatic mode, I'm going to use some timer modules so it knows how long to do things, and then to activate it, I'm going to use a motion sensor. Luckily, I already have a motion sensor trigger on hand, which I made in my water spray cat repellent video. But on that note, I'm actually having a go at doing these videos full time at the moment, so please subscribe if you get a chance. Now, just to make sure everything happens at the right time and there's no false activations, we can use a magnetic reed switch from a bike speedometer. With a magnet glued on the glass, we'll then know if someone breaks the window. And then lastly, we'll have a bait handbag in the car with a trigger to confirm the bag has been grabbed. I have to admit, this is probably the first time I've needed to label wiring with drill and knife. We now have the full assembly installed on the car door. Personally, I don't think passengers would even notice it's there. unless they want to use the armrest. Despite its presence on the inside of the car, from the outside it's fairly discreet, with just the tip of the knife peeking over the door. Now, I want to test this out on some stuff, but despite my knife sharpening efforts, I'm not completely confident that this knife is going to get through the material that well. I mean, it's a cool looking blade, but it's barely getting through this cushion. So Kristen picked up an alternative to try and got this imported knife that apparently belongs to Kev. Not sure who he is or what he does, but it involves chopping, slicing and dicing, which will be perfect for our project. But this knife already seems way sharper, and it actually sounds really cool when you pick it up, like a proper knife sound. Or at least how movies taught me knives are meant to sound. And testing it out on some foam, that already works a lot better. Now I just need to shorten it down to the same overall length as our dive knife, so I cut the handle off. I've always wondered what it looks like in the handle of these stainless steel knives, and it's hollow in there. Except in the top half there was another weird bag of knife powder. But then I taped up the blade to protect it from welding sparks and welded a shaft on the end, which may have caught on fire a few times. Then I ended up with this perfectly balanced Kef's knife, which once you put in the drill is wildly dangerous. But the knife makes this really cool sound every time the drill stops. To assist with our testing, and for use in other YouTube videos, we have introduced a new character into the family. After sitting on a mate's farm for 20 years, meet Tubes, or Tubesy. Named after the fact that he's mostly made of tubes, and spelt like that because it seems to be how you guys think that I say tubes in my past videos, which I thought was pretty funny. He has been great to have around the house. My kids absolutely loved waking up to have breakfast and discover him staring at them through the window. After removing the massive ant nest that was living inside his prostate, Kristen got to work giving him a bit more body padding for our tests. To kick off our tests, I have the dive knife in the drill. And here's a little sample of it running on the motion sensor, because I'm sure as hell not going to lean my body into the car. And a final little spin to flick off the blood. Seriously, what the f have I built? I also thought it would be a good idea to give the alternative knife a quick test, just to make sure it clears everything and doesn't slash up the upholstery. Only thieves. And that moves along really nicely, and it seems well balanced as well. For a nice hassle-free twist and remove. Honestly, if I was a thief, the prospect of a target car having 1 or even 4 of these inside, there's no way I'd be taking the risk. I gave Kristen a quick demo and safety briefing, which basically included don't go near the f***ing car.
I feel like that's going straight for the throat.
My name's Tomo, and I like bags.
We thought a good first test would be some polystyrene foam in a rough head and torso shape. Kristen named him Tomo. Sorry to any Toms out there. And that does look like it's got him right in the throat, and it's penetrated deep. But it looks like the knife is slipping in the drill, which needs a bit of a tighten up. Oh, the drill's not tightened up.
You okay, Tommy?
It jammed up a little, but I think Tomo is loving this ride. A couple of screws popped out, but I added a little bit of extra strength. With some bigger screws in there and the knife tightened up a little bit, we could give it another test. Now with all these tests, we're assuming the thief has already broken the window. We just don't have a MarkRober glass replacement budget.
Did I not?
No, it just goes in.
So it also pulls the rubber into the car.
Oh, the sound. Tomo. Oh. Yeah.
How is he?
Oh, where's his face?
Where's his face gone? Oh, it broke off. He got decapitated. I'm not reaching in there.
Now, even though I think the dive knife serves as well, with its strength from being so thick, I was keen to give the kitchen knife a go. Testing Jono. Go for it. It's gone right into his nose, and all his face snow is coming out. And strangely, after that, Jono decided not to steal bags from cars anymore. So it's probably going to be worthwhile putting a tarp down before using this device.
Clean the blood off.
I thought for another test we should use a watermelon because that's just what people seem to do. So I asked Kristen to pick one up, and how did I not realise that watermelons are f***ing expensive? This bloody thing was $30. So in order to test it safely without using hands, I made up this melon holder using a kitchen tuning fork, which would probably be a good thief deterrent in itself.
Oh, that's a scratch on the car.
It sliced it awesomely, and then the thermal fuse tripped from it overloading, and then we were kind of just stuck in this precarious situation where we didn't know what to do because the fuse would reactivate at any moment. After it scratched the car, the safest thing to do was just to let it destroy itself.
Uh-oh.
Damn, it's a heavy melon. That was dangerous.
It's always a good thing when it ends on that note.
So the slider, which is mostly held on by plastic, just completely broke. I tried to wake it back up for a little bit, but there was no signs of life. So before we could do another test, I had to make all the plastic bits out of metal and learn how to put a power window unit back together that was never designed to be rebuilt. After a bit of a clean-up, it was time for Tubesy to have a go. After a quick dance with Kristen. Now for this test, because Tubesy is human-sized, he'll be reaching all the way into the exact position a thief would be in if grabbing a bag from the middle of the car. He's really intrigued by the dashboard, but out the corner of his eye, he can see the goods.
Reach!
It's stuck. I think it sounded like it went into the fiberglass.
Now, unless my knowledge of anatomy is wrong, I think that has gone directly into his heart.
I didn't actually think of a way to
This is
do
where
anything
he
about
lives.
this.
This is where he lives now.
The knife is bound up a bit on the jumper, but at this point the job is pretty much complete.
There's no power at all.
Did you start a fire?
Not this time.
Now this fiberglass is actually way stronger than what a thief would be. And with the amount of power the motors were applying, it's managed to find more fuses to blow.
That was giving him a lot of stab.
Now the scary thing here is, even if this was you and you somehow survived the first bit, there's no way you can manually pull this down. Which is actually one of the characteristics of worm drive gearboxes, and it's one of the reasons they're used in power windows, to stop people sliding your window down. Look at us, learning about mechanics and effective stabbing.
It just permanently pulls him into the trap.
Should I try and pull him off? Should I try and pull him off? Oh, he's free.
What's the damage?
Did it touch the fiberglass?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gone through. Yeah, all the layers.
All the layers.
So that's what the crunch noise was. Give it another try.
You ready for another go? You might get it this time.
Oh, jeez.
What?
And that didn't stop until it had gone into the fiberglass and then destroyed itself.
Did I break it?
No. No, it broke itself.
So this is where my woodworking mistake earlier has come back to haunt me. It's always a good idea to drill a pilot hole before putting a screw into wood to stop it splitting like this, which frequently leads to human torsos ending up on the passenger seat of your car with a drill knife hanging out of their chest. After repairing the drill mount, I had a realization. You can put any drill accessory or other thing that'll fit in the drill to help defend your car. So someone's trying to take a bag from your car, next minute you're taking a core sample from their ball bag. Or it could be a handy drive-by drilling service. Perhaps you need an extra long reach? Well, a drill bit welded onto a threaded rod will do the trick. This is actually long enough to reach out the window, which could be good for parking ticket negotiations. Late for work and forget to brush your teeth that morning? An automatic drill toilet brush has got you covered. Just maybe don't wear a hoodie. We are now ready to test this out on the street with our knife attachment. But before that, definitely leave your ideas for other drill accessories in the comments. So with the car on the street, it wasn't long before we had a visitor. Okay, so there are some obvious problems with this whole plan. Apart from having to deal with the mess each time, my wife says it's like murder or something. But seriously, it shouldn't need to be said, but don't actually try and build something like this. As far as the theft problem goes, even though neither MarkRober or I have solved it, maybe this guy had the right idea using a non-fatal flash grenade. Instant punishment with no bodies to dispose of. Unfortunately, my local Kmart is out of stock of them, but ultimately for my own circumstances, I think that Tubesy himself may actually be the best deterrent of them all. I lost count of how many times over the last couple of weeks that he scared the crap out of everyone in my family whenever we would catch a glimpse of him as we walked past the car. All I need to do is leave him in the car and no glass gets broken in the first place. Like seriously, who's going to break into a car with this guy watching you as you approach?